I hope you've had a great day so far. I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some insights on creating a community-led strategy. So I'll start by sharing just a little bit about me. My name is Amanda Martin. I'm currently the head of community for Unbounce, a marketing SaaS company with a core purpose of helping marketers grow smarter. So we do this by offering a platform for pre-optimized landing pages through to compelling copy creation, campaign optimization, all leveraging the power of AI. Unbounce is based out of Vancouver in Canada, and I myself live and work from Calgary, Canada. So any Canadians, or even better yet, people in the Calgary area, give a shout out in the chat. Just over a year ago, I was hired by Unbounce to lead the charge in building out a new strategy and implementing a revitalized community. This involved a complete migration from one community platform to another, which we successfully relaunched a few months back in May of this year. Before Unbounce, I spent 5 years managing a global community of data professionals who work with the Microsoft data platform, including an international network of more than 300 local and virtual chapters, so very much an in-person focused community. I have a background in marketing and sociology, and I found my professional sweet spot when I discovered and started working in the world of community management in 2016, and I haven't looked back since. Okay, so I actually presented this session at another community conference earlier this year and was really grateful that it was well enough received to be selected to present here at CMX Summit as well. And we only have 30 short minutes together today and a lot to cover, so I will be moving quickly and hope to leave at least 5 minutes for a quick Q&A at the end. But you will have access to the recording for future reference, as you know, and certainly feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn without any outstanding questions you have at the end. So here's what we'll be covering today. I'll start by sharing my definition of what a community-led strategy means, and then share a from-to framework that I found to be really helpful in this work. I'll then take a look at community-led evolution overall, and we'll share the specific community-led strategy evolution I set out to create and execute on at Unbounce. So I won't be walking through just the step-by-step of how to create a strategy, but rather how to ensure that your community strategy is truly community-led. I'll finish off by sharing the results of our Unbounce community relaunch, how we did that by executing on this strategy, and then share a few final takeaways and have hopefully a bit of time for that Q&A that I mentioned. So it's my goal today that you will be able to learn from the approach that I took in creating and executing a community-led strategy at Unbounce for this relaunch and be able to apply it to your own unique situation. So this is hopefully applicable whether you already have an existing community, if you're in the process of building one or maybe relaunching one like we did, or if you're just at the stage right now of dreaming about the future opportunity to build one in the future. Okay, so let's get into it. What does a community-led strategy mean? So here's my definition. Creating a community-led strategy is a collective process with an emphasis on establishing mutual value and cross-functional collaboration with both your company and your customers. So wordy, but kind of all-encompassing of what I'm really going to focus on today. And a really important distinction to make right out of the gate is that just because you have a community does not necessarily mean that you have a community-led strategy. I'll be speaking to this point and sharing how this was the case here at Unbounce before we implemented and rolled out this new strategy. I just wanted to note as well, for simplicity's sake, I'll use the term customers to refer to the external individuals in our community. But as you will see, your community members, of course, can be customers and non-customers alike, depending, again, on your situation and your unique strategy. So let's start by looking at that from-to model that I mentioned. So during my time at Unbounce, I have had the incredible opportunity to work closely with Erica Kuhl, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with. But if not, Erica was the former VP community at Salesforce and now operates independently as a consultant. So some of the content on this slide comes directly from her, and it's a really helpful look at the evolution to being community-led. Like I said a couple slides back, just because you have a community doesn't actually mean that you're necessarily community-led, which is indicated by all the points there in the from column. So I'll let you read through the points on this slide, but really it's this shift to community providing value to and being valued by your entire organization, and the aim to build diverse and mutually beneficial relationships through community. Next, let's look at how this applies to a real-world example and the community strategy evolution that I was able to lead and execute on to relaunch the Unbounce community. So just quickly, a little bit more background about Unbounce just to set the stage. So like I mentioned, Unbounce is a landing page builder platform that pairs marketers' know-how with AI to effortlessly increase sales and conversions and help marketers grow smarter. So our recent product development and growth is one important reason as to why our community needed a refresh. With all of these shifts, we were also expanding our target market for our customers, and our team recognized the opportunity for community to create exceptional value, which just currently wasn't living up to its potential. See, Unbounce actually had an active online community for close to a decade. So now let's look at that same from-to model so I can share where Unbounce's community was and where it needed to go in order for it to be community-led. So in its previous form, the Unbounce community was primarily a self-service support community using solely a discussion forum, which of course is still a very effective format, but is also, one of the most traditional and also just scratches the surface for all that community can be, as you all know. So we wanted to expand out that functionality into a dynamic hub. So think customer and product feedback, advocacy programs, gamification, subgroup interactions, events, thought leadership, the list goes on. The previous community was relatively siloed within our customer success team, and the rest of the organization did not have much involvement, participation, or frankly, knowledge really about what was going on in the community. And we wanted to see community fully integrated throughout the entire org. We wanted to create additional space for our new Smart Builder tool and AI-powered marketing content, and also to just expand the scope to be a place to discuss so much more than just our product. We wanted to create a place where marketers could come to connect, share best practices, and learn from one another, regardless of whether they were Unbounce customers or not. And then finally, our previous community was not being effectively measured. It completely lacked any data integration. So we had no way of knowing who or how many of our community members were also our customers, and therefore what impact community was in fact having on our business. So hopefully this visualization helps to demonstrate how Unbounce already had an established, relatively active online community that was not necessarily community-led, and also demonstrates where we needed to evolve from to create that new community-led strategy. And I'll tell you now, it is certainly easier to adopt this approach the first time around. So keep that in mind if you are building a new community from scratch. This from-to exercise also sets up a really easy, good way to evaluate success. So the ability at the end to ask, did you get where you intended to go as part of the strategy from the very beginning? Okay, now let's start getting into the juicy part. So as I mentioned, the intention of this session is not to just walk through the steps of creating a strategy, but rather cover how to ensure your strategy is community-led. So what are those key components along the way? Because you can still put together a community strategy in a silo just on your own. You can still broadcast what you're doing to your customers and team members without including them in the process. And you can focus on just one angle or area of value. So all of those items that showed up in the from column on the previous slide. But if you do this, your strategy won't be truly community-led and will be much less likely to succeed. So that's kind of the aim of what we're aiming to cover today. First, I'll speak how to do this in collaboration with your customers, community members, and then how to do it in collaboration with your company or your internal team. So the first step in establishing your community strategy is the discovery process or the research process. And this should comprise of customer research, internal stakeholder research, and competitive analysis. Here, I'll speak specifically to the customer side of that process, which is then followed by creating your community personas, where you really nail down who you're building this community for. And then as you move closer to your pre-launch stage, how to closely involve your customers to ensure that it's truly a collaborative process. So customer research discovery, it may seem like a basic step, but you would be surprised how much this gets missed or skimmed over. So for our discovery process, we included both a customer survey and customer focus groups. So the customer survey was sent out to a subsection of our existing customers based on criteria of who our primary target was. So we looked at factors like company size, location, product adoption, etc. when we set this segment. We set a target of how many respondents we wanted to complete the survey, and then extrapolated that number based on an average open and click rates to determine the size of the net that we needed to cast. With this survey, we were looking to A, validate some of our hypotheses about what we thought the new and improved community should be, and B, looking to discover any unexpected findings or things that we didn't consider, both of which we were thankfully able to achieve through this research. So we included a question in the survey asking participants if they also wanted to opt in to be contacted about the chance to be in a focus group, which just under a third said they would. We kept these focus groups really small, so just 3 to 4 participants and only 30 minutes long. We made sure to really hone in on any findings from the survey that either really stood out or that we felt like we needed to get more explanation on. And this was also just a really good opportunity to get some face time in with your customers and make them feel valued and like a part of the strategy from the very, very beginning. In terms of incentives, we offered the chance to win a swag prize pack for completing the survey. And then for the focus group participants, after they signed up, we let them know that we would be sending them $50 gift cards as a sign of appreciation. So this way we knew that we had participants that actually truly cared, and then we were able to delight them by offering a reward after they had already committed. So I've included some of the questions that we asked through the discovery process on the slide. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but instead the questions that resulted in the most valuable and insightful responses in case they can be helpful to you as well. You can see that the goal was to learn more about how and where our customers go to learn, what motivates them to participate, and the type of unique content that we should be striving to offer them. So moving on to one of the next very important steps in developing a community-led strategy, building out your community personas. Now, your marketing team may or may not already have customer personas developed, and it's important to note that while those personas are definitely useful to study and understand as a background, they're not the same as your community personas. Your community personas are who you are building this community for, to understand what value these people are looking for, what motivates them to come and participate in your community, and what community modalities or programs that they are most likely to use once they get there. So for Unbounce, we determined that the 3 personas we would focus on to begin with are the troubleshooter, the learner, and the expert, is what we called them. And by establishing these personas, we knew that when these 3 types of people arrive at our new community, they need to immediately recognize the opportunity and the value to participate and see, what's in it for them specifically. And then next, I'll cover how to engage with your customers in the pre-launch phase. Now, in Unbounce's case, this was during a soft launch period, which meant that we had built out most of our new community, and then we invited in a small group of customers to try things out, give us valuable feedback, and establish early advocates. But it's important to note that you could also, of course, move this engagement up much earlier on in the process and build out right alongside your customers. Remember that strategy needs to best reflect your own unique situation. For Unbounce's pre-launch engagement, I asked Unbouncers, what we call Unbounce employees, across the entire organization to put forth recommendations for customers that we should invite to this exclusive opportunity. So this is how I sourced those people. The suggested criteria that I put out included, long-time loyal customers, customers with high NPS scores, customers who already advocate and champion for Unbounce, early adopters of our new product offerings, and just any friendly, nice customers who we might have great relationships with already. Again, we put together a big list knowing that only a fraction of those invited would opt in, and we were looking for about 40 people to participate. Once I had this group selected and confirmed, my next step was to host a sneak peek webinar, which meant that these customers were the very first people to see and experience our new community. They were told they would have exclusive access to the community for a 3-week period before we fully launched to the public. And in recognition for their valuable time and effort to participate, they were granted community badges as official founding members. They also had the opportunity to earn swag and prizes based on how they participated throughout the process, and an invitation into a private group, the first one that we created in our new community. This initiative was a great success. It was fun. And we received so much valuable feedback ranging from the structure of our community site navigation to how to optimize tagging functionality to a general consensus that the font size on the site was too small to begin with. So a range of feedback. They also contributed net new content to our community, which really complemented all of the content that we had migrated over from that previous community platform. And that was a lot of content. They felt valued and included in this, pre-launch phase. And that just is, again, it highlights an example of that mutual value that I'll continue to talk about. And asking Unbouncers to personally recommend the customers who were invited to participate in this opportunity was also just one of the ways that I empowered the teams within our organization to be involved, which is a perfect segue right into our next section. So now it's time to shift gears from how to collaborate with customers to how to involve your company in the community-led strategy building process. Once again, I'll go back to that important first discovery step, but this time from the angle of speaking with internal stakeholders. I'll then talk to how you can generate internal awareness and buy-in across the entire organization, so important. And lastly, how you can ensure that all teams have representation and a direct stake in the community strategy, and how this initiative can help scale your likely very lean community team, which I think we can all relate to for the most part. So when it came to internal stakeholder research, I took two different approaches: a ton of one-on-one conversations and another survey. Yes, one-on-ones require a big time commitment up front, but again, this is a crucial step that should not be skipped. Conveniently for me, I treated these one-on-ones as also part of my general onboarding, as it kind of hit the ground running when I first started. So as a way to meet new people across the team and learn more about what they're working on. But at the same time, I already had that mindset of trying to get them excited about the potential of what a new and improved Unbounce community could be and how it might be able to offer them value. So the screenshot on the slide is a list of all the teams I spoke directly with. So that amounted to more than 35 different one-on-ones in total. In each of these conversations, I shared a high-level vision of the future of the Unbounce community based on what I already knew. I learned historical context for how they had been involved, if they had been, with our previous community, and the early opportunities that they see for future value from community. I was also able to determine who the key stakeholders were within Unbounce as it relates to community, and then selected a small subsection of those people, 19 people, to send a directed survey to. So again, I've listed out a small selection of questions that I included in the survey, which resulted in the most insightful takeaways. From the responses of this discovery, I was able to glean 3 common and notable themes. So the first one was product and industry learning. Throughout all the research, both internal and external, the desire for education and learning was probably the most evident. So it was clear that Unbouncers were hoping our new community would serve as a valuable educational resource, both for Unbounce products and industry learning in general, and ultimately seeing the value in being a part of the conversation happening in our own owned space. The second theme was customer insights. This was one that had been top of mind across Unbounce. We wanted to enhance our understanding of these new customer segments that we were focusing on and learn how the community is positioned to help with this. So, recognizing the opportunity to learn more about our customers from our community that we can't learn anywhere else. And then finally, connection and networking, the nexus of community. So Unbouncers recognize the importance of building trust, authentic connections, and those mutually beneficial relationships. So it was really encouraging to see the results from the internal stakeholder research and the external customer research validate one another, a positive indication that we were on the right track to now properly inform our community strategy and move forward. Next up, internal awareness. And I cannot overemphasize how important it is to building out knowledge and buy-in across your entire organization. I'll cover 3 particular ways that you can accomplish this, but at the highest level, you want people to A, care about community and understand why it's important. B, truly understand that the community is not just your community and that the community strategy and success belongs to everyone. So, it's not just Amanda's strategy or that thing that Amanda's working on over there. It's Unbounce's community, and it's up to our entire team to participate and contribute to its success for our customers in order to also receive that value back. So I see my role as head of community in this capacity to act as the facilitator and the bridge between all that's involved. So it's truly a team effort. So once I'd pulled together my community strategy, my first step was to set up an executive readout. So I booked this for a 1-hour session, and I invited the most relevant members of our strategic leadership team. So this included our VP marketing, VP customer success, Senior Director of Customer Enablement, Chief Strategy Officer, and our CEO. Every single one of them RSVP'd and attended the whole session. I walked them through every step of the process, from the discovery findings to our resulting community vision statement and values, those personas, the content, the types of programs that we intended to implement, and then the road and timeline for launch. And perhaps most importantly for this particular audience, I was sure to directly tie the community priorities with our top company priorities. I also spoke to leading community health metrics, which I'm sure you've heard throughout the sessions today, and how that these would eventually lead to lagging business outcomes and that ROI. So the goal here in this readout was to secure buy-in on the strategic direction and ensure alignment before moving into the execution phase. It went really well, and the positive feedback I received was the perfect launchpad to taking the next step of actually designing and starting to build out this new community. Once the exec was on board, my next step for internal awareness was then to schedule an internal roadshow. So yet again, another initiative that takes time but is so important. I met with 8 different teams over a 10-day period to walk them through a condensed version of that full community strategy that I had presented. I tailored each of the presentations to specifically communicate the value prop to each team and build excitement about what this new community would be. I also asked them 3 main questions. So I asked each team, how do you feel your team can be involved and contribute value to the Unbounce community? Question 2, what value do you feel your team can gain from the new Unbounce community? And 3, what impact would you like to see the new Unbounce community have on your team's goals? So again, really honing in, creating that buy-in and that sense of mutual value. And then from there, I continue to provide regular internal updates, whether more informally on Slack or more formally in a Confluence kind of internal blog post on where things were at for community, to keep it top of mind, share wins, and again, just build that excitement and anticipation leading up to launch. So it was all this internal awareness building that led to the formation of what I ended up calling the Community Committee. So I recognized that just spreading the word wasn't going to be enough, and that I needed actual commitment to participate from teams across the organization to effectively scale. As a community team of 1, which again, I'm sure many of you can relate to, I also recognized ahead of time that once the community launched, it would be a struggle to answer all the questions, create the content and programming myself, all while continuing to engage with internal teams, track metrics, and everything else that goes along with community management. So I put out a call for 1 to 2 members from each of the most relevant teams to join this committee, with the idea that each member represent their teams and bring forth initiatives. So both ideas that could be implemented, in the new community, but also requests for help from the community. What's going on in their world? What's top of mind? So I've included the committee definition, how I defined it, and the list of benefits here on the slide. And apart from a monthly 45-minute group meeting, there's no set time commitment. We have our own designated Slack channel, just with the exception of our customer-facing team members who have agreed to a small committed amount of time to help address any outstanding questions each week. So the idea here is for this initiative not to be like a heavy lift or a side of desk project, but rather a valuable opportunity that will help them better succeed in their roles and gain exposure to community, which they may not have otherwise. So I hadn't seen this type of initiative done before, and I thought I'd just put it out there and see what kind of interest it generated. And I was really, really pleased by the response. It's such a great cross-functional group, and that comes up often in our monthly meetings. It brings team members together that might not otherwise have a monthly touch point. So it's kind of like a side benefit as well. This is certainly something that you could try out, even on a much smaller scale, but let me tell you, it really makes a world of difference just to, feel like you have other team members within the org kind of on your side and working right alongside you. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, that initial from-to exercise helped set up a key way to quickly evaluate success. So did we accomplish what we set out to do when we created our strategy? So now that I've covered very quickly so much of how we got there, I wanted to share what it actually resulted in for the new Unbounce community when we relaunched back in May. So to start, I wanted to show you a simple before and after. So on the left is what our previous community looked like, and on the right is what our new community looks like today. So just like we set out to do, we were able to expand from just a discussion forum, which of course is still a major core component of our community, into more of that community hub, which includes product updates, events, groups, and links to Unbounce owned resources, as well as some gamification. Our new site is also designed to reflect Unbounce branding. And of course, it's important to remember it's not just about a community looking pretty. So we'll take a quick look at some of these new components they were able to roll out. So as you can see, our Q&A and discussion forums still come first under that Connect tab in our new community. Under the Learn tab, we have direct links to our Help Center articles, which are hosted on a separate site. And we were able to set up federated search within the new platform, which means that you can type a topic or question into the search bar, and it will pull results both from within the community and our Unbounce Help Center documentation. So very helpful from a user experience standpoint. The Discover tab houses links to existing Unbounce-owned resources and our partner programs. Product Updates provides one central place to share all of our improvements and news about products and features. And Events, of course, lists our upcoming and past events. I'll go into a couple of these in a few more detail here. So again, Product Updates. This is actually a completely new feature for us, and it's proudly owned by our product marketing team. So that team creates the content, they determine their own cadence, and they post the content themselves. So that's a great one for them to have ownership over. We also now have a central hub to list our events. While many .com sites have this, we didn't, and I jumped on the opportunity to have this live in the community, just to give yet another reason for people to navigate here. And this is something that we haven't had a huge presence in, and we're continuing to plan and build out for in the future. And then we were also able to launch with a couple of those groups and with gamification functionality, just some fun badges, points, and a leaderboard. And down the road, again, we plan on expanding out this program, including the implementation of ranks as well. And then finally, we were able to center our community-led strategy with the input and close collaboration of all these key teams within our org. So following launch, I had several colleagues that I don't work closely with on a daily basis reach out to share positive feedback, enthusiasm, and net new ideas for the community. And we've seen the same positive feedback from members, both from returning members who are part of the previous community and then net new members as well. So this early qualitative feedback is a positive indicator as we start to evaluate the success of this new strategy. But of course, it's an ongoing work in progress, and we are still in early days, even now, a few months post-launch. Now that we are post-launch, we are working to track those leading health community metrics I spoke about. And these are centered around 1, acquisition. So how many people are we getting to come to the community? 2, conversion. How many people are we then converting into members? And 3, engagement. How are people participating and interacting once they arrive in the community? As we establish these baselines, we can then look ahead down the road to when we can start tracking those business outcomes or lagging indicators, such as impact on churn, product adoption, scaled self-service, etc. So while this graphic on the slide certainly isn't a new concept, it is one of the most important elements of being community-led and successfully creating that community-led strategy. All right, I will wrap up with some final takeaways that serve to summarize, hopefully, all that we've covered today. So first and foremost, I will remind you that becoming community-led is an evolution. So just because we successfully relaunched our community does not mean that the work is even close to being done. There's still a long way to go. But make this as easy on yourself as possible and involve your team members across your organization and your customers early and often. Keep what you're doing top of mind. In everything you do, check in on how you can establish mutual value for everyone involved. Your customers need to receive value from the community. Otherwise, why would they show up and participate? And your company needs to understand the value that they will receive through the business outcomes. Otherwise, why will they invest in community? So it has to be beneficial for both. And on a more granular level, again, each team within the org needs to understand the value that they can contribute to in terms of support or unique content creation, and the ways that community can help them be more successful in what they're trying to achieve. As such, be sure to invest time in driving that internal awareness and enablement throughout your entire community strategy building process. Keep your work in the forefront, get people excited about it, and empower them to participate and have a say in it. Take the time to understand who you are building your community for. Again, this refers to those community personas that I covered, but also your internal organization. Really try to learn people's motivations and reasons for getting involved. And finally, I really encourage you to try out that from to exercise for yourself. It can be applied to whatever stage you're at in your community building process or even in your community career. So look at where are you now, where do you want to get to, and then implement these learnings into creating that community-led strategy to get there. You've got this. Thank you so much for being here for this session. I hope you found it helpful and valuable as quickly as I ran through everything. I think if we have a few minutes, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. If there's anything I don't have an immediate answer for on hand, happy to follow up with you directly afterwards. And as I mentioned, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. It's been a pleasure, everyone.
Yeah, Amanda. Man, that was great. Like that was a huge takeaways from everything you said there. So really fantastic job. We have a couple of minutes here, so want to tackle some of the questions that we got from the chat. And I actually had the same question too. Question from Amanda about the executive readout. What was some unexpected feedback maybe that you got from those stakeholders or anything that you learned from running that meeting with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I spoke to the importance of talking about the business outcomes and what the business was going to see as a result of community. Of course, that's what that exec level, specifically the CEO, is looking for. What I didn't anticipate was how much detail she was going to want to see right in that initial presentation. So that was kind of the one piece of feedback. They were really psyched about everything and loved the vision, but she was looking for a follow-up on like initial number projections, which of course, is tough to do when you're at that early on stage. But I was able to, do a little bit of research into industry averages and benchmarking and then pull that together to provide that for her. So, when it comes to CEOs and execs, like the more numbers that you can put out there, the better, in tying it back to those business outcomes.
Absolutely. In terms of like building out, some of those initial benchmarks and the strategy, are there any like books you were reading or like leaders you were paying attention to, or how did you kind of come up with some of these concepts there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like as I mentioned, I had the incredible opportunity to be working with Erica Kuhl with her consulting. So of course she's, one of the best resources you can have for that kind of information. But, I was also poking around, like a lot of other speakers have said, poking around other communities, reaching out to other professionals, and then also talking to our data teams, like the web section of our marketing team, to get more information on like the Google Analytics, like how many visitors are we getting just to our .com? And then what percentage can I extrapolate down to estimate, how many visitors we might get to community.unbounce.com based on those numbers. So it certainly wasn't an easy exercise to go through, but it was a great challenge. And I certainly, recognized why those questions were being asked.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do one more question, be respectful of your time, but what has been the main value add that's gotten community members to continue to come back and engage and kind of participate with Unbounce?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like I mentioned, we had this long-standing community that was really centered around our product and being able to ask questions. One of the most popular categories in our community is what's called tips and scripts. So it's people turning to other customers who have come up with custom scripts to find, unique things that they can implement on their landing pages. So that continues to be the most valuable section in our new community. And that's why, speaking to the evolution of this new strategy that we're trying to implement. So we needed to protect what was providing the most value to the members and of course, bring that over without interruption. And now a few months into it, we're, working to layer on those additional pieces that, we want to just talk more about industry learnings, and we don't want all the conversation to be centered around the product. So that's an ongoing work in progress. But of course, you need to find what's most valuable for your members and, make sure that you're continuing to deliver on that.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. If other people have questions, what's kind of like the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's probably best. I would love to meet you. And if you have anything else that's top of mind or want to chat, don't be a stranger. And thank you so much again for sticking to the very end of day one. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. Again, incredible presentation.